Have you felt your life being strange? How do you feel about people in your life departing? Or have you ever questioned about this world, if it really exists? Maybe it's just a simulation, a chain of computer code. On the verge of truth, let's experience the beginning of a soul-searching journey towards a decision. Hello, fellow humans. This is Lots of Hope. Welcome to this episode of The Living Journey, where we escape and explore life in an alternate universe. Thank you for your support. Now, let's decompress. The simulation. Living in the big city, you had seen the most crazy actions by people. Some random crazy actions had started to become invisible to you. You don't even flinch when you see a pizza delivery man holding 10 pizza boxes stacked together with just one hand while riding the bike across the street. You just casually walk through the drama like they don't exist. Things had become extremely insignificant to you. You just walk, relax, sleep, and repeat. On your way to work, you would walk into a coffee shop, being greeted by the barista, who you have been chatting for over a year. You ask about the new person who is working with the barista. Oh, he's new. Been like a week? Really? Feeling confused, you wanted to say you were sure that wasn't the case yesterday, but you didn't continue. Ignoring the confusion, you walked your way towards your work. Each day, you find the way of life becoming less and less exciting. People being isolated into their own bubbles. Even smiling to others became a strange thing to do, as they don't really smile back anymore. Arriving at your company with your breakfast and coffee, clocking in and sitting in your seat, turning on your computer to start your day with the hope of one day your talent in coding will flourish. You took a deep breath and dived into the keyboard. Drinking the coffee during your break, you kept on thinking about the coworker of the barista. Your coworkers who you used to know either got transferred or replaced. None of them said goodbye, and the new colleagues never introduced themselves. But somehow, you just know their names and some very basic informations. Like finding a loose end on a knitted sweater. Your fingers cannot resist the seduction of pulling. Tracing the doubt, you found more and more strange feelings about strangers suddenly appeared in your life. Like clockwork, at 6 p.m., on your way back to your own apartment, the elevator door would just open at the 5th floor, and an elder lady who repeats similar topics will get off the elevator. When you went back downstairs to the doorman, asking about the elderly neighbor lady, your doorman claimed that he had never seen the older lady in the building. I promise you, they are only a young couple with a kid and a bunch of young people like you living on the 5th floor. Their names are... The doorman couldn't remember their names, which is even more strange, as he remembers almost everyone off the top of his head. Getting back into your apartment, you try to dial one of your old friends' numbers. Not only had you not contacted them for a while, But you also didn't remember the names at whose wedding you were the witness of. Finding the photos to confirm that you are actually not crazy. You smiled so happily and brightly in the photos. Comparing to you now, in the mirrors, your smile is barely there. Pulling on the loose yarn, the sweater gets deconstructed even more. Speaking to the barista in the coffee shop, asking more details about the new worker who had supposedly been there for more than a week. Then chatting to the new worker, you were even more sure about your doubt, giving out random drastic detail from a couple days ago, which had never happened. Like a robot being programmed with new memory and instantly telling you how crazy and hard it was to clean up the floor during the morning rush hour. And your mean manager, who had been extremely picky about work, suddenly became nice. As you were not sure about who you were talking to, you rushed out of your office, not sure about where you should go. Seeing the ancient looking tall tower nestled in modern skyscrapers, you wandered towards the city hall. As you get closer and closer towards the old church like building, walking closer and closer towards the tall marble structure with a pointy spire, a sense of abandonment grew stronger and stronger. Entering through the front entrance into the courtyard, almost like you had passed through an invisible wall. The fountain in the middle of the courtyard had dried up, leaving just marble walls, dusty windows, and cold stone pavement. You don't remember the last time you entered this area. Maybe it was years and years ago when you came to apply for a renovation permit. Crossing the courtyard, arriving at the main entrance to the City Hall lobby, pushing open the grand dusty doors, a heat wave rushed out of the door. You see a supercomputer working overtime, calculating data with fans spinning out of control. Being stunned by the modern machines under the light passing through the stained glass, you walked into the door and closed the heavy wooden door. Inspecting the machines, it's so vast that it is almost like a building within the grand 3-story tall lobby, blocking everything else, including the stairs behind. Looking at the brightly lit large screen, carefully avoiding touching the keyboard in front of the screen, reading the code that's being automatically written, you became fascinated about the functions of the code. But even spending hours of analysis later, you still couldn't understand much of it. Finally losing all the energy and strength, trying to stand up and walk home, you accidentally bumped into the mechanical keyboard, pressing on the random keys, and the manual input stopped all the automatic writing. A weird sense entered your body. Not sure about what had been changed, but chain reaction quickly followed. You can feel the air around you became still, but still walked by the door, and the door became extra heavy. Within a couple of seconds of backing onto the street, you realized the world had stopped its track. Not only the time had been frozen, but the whole world stopped its pace. People stopped in the middle of talking. Birds paused in the middle of the air. And you even see the light stopped halfway in the middle of transmitting. Realizing what had just happened, you ran back to the city hall. The weird sense that entered your body started to help you understand the circumstances. To many people's belief, the truth of this world, it is actually a huge simulation. The simulation became more and more complicated. After hundreds and thousands of years, the simulation is inevitably coming to an end. Each individual will get their happy endings before being locked out of the simulation, and the non-player character will replace the role of the person in society until everyone locks out of the system. The engineer who was tasked with managing with all the happy endings couldn't handle the loneliness, wrote a pretty darn perfect automation code before receiving a self-imposed happy ending and locked out of the simulation before schedule. Arriving back at the dusty ecclesiastical city hall, pushing through the door, getting back in front of the screen, trying to fix whatever keys that you had pressed to cause the automation to stop. All the exhaustions that you had felt slowly evaporated. You hadn't been working on the code like this for a while. It took you a bit of time to get back on the rhythm. Thankfully, with the concept of time being completely removed, you kept on trying, and trying. Oddly, with no need to eat, to sleep, to rest, your nails kept on growing, biting off the long nails on the fingers with your teeth, taking off the shoes and ignoring the long toenails. Finally, when you got the gist of the simulation and repaired the automation set up by the previous simulation engineer, and the world returned to its track. With the concept of time resumed, you felt the tiredness dawn back on you, and you fell asleep on the floor of the City Hall lobby. Waking up in your weirdly comfortable position, almost like a newborn baby, just woke up from a 9-month-long sleep. You realized that it is in the middle of the day. You wanted to call in to let your colleagues know that you won't be coming in today, but the phone battery is out. Looking at the long curly toenails and the chewed up fingernails, you kept on strategizing on how to get home without being looked at too much. As each step that you take, your curly toenails makes the sound of the nails tapping on the stone. Trying to run home fast, but it is impossible to run in the condition that you are in. So you endure the walk of shame as you walked home. Seeing the judging eyes around you, you wanted to shout loudly that you had just saved the world, even though the whole world is just a soulless simulation. Enduring the pain, you arrived at home barefoot, with nail clippers to trim off the long nails on the toes and fix the jagged fingernails, picking up your toenails as you couldn't figure out how long you had stayed in the lobby in front of that supercomputer. You just figured that you won't ever be eating curly fries ever again. Showering in your comfortable bathroom, using a cotton swab to clean out the dust that had accumulated in your nostrils. With a sneeze, the thought of all that you are experiencing is not only just a computer code, but also can be changed to whatever the computer is being input with. The warm water running through your skin, the fragrant body wash, and the tiny mold in the corner of the tub. All the things that you enjoyed and were annoyed by suddenly have no meanings at all. Thinking about the mold cleaning solution that you had purchased online, you had either the energy to cancel the order or did not have the desire to use the item when it arrives. With wet hair, you laid on your bed even though you had slept for however long and hadn't eaten anything for however long. You just have the desire to dial the numbers in your contacts to find out if the ones that you cherished and loved had found their happy ending and logged out of the game. Turns out, your boring and lonely life has its roots. You are the only one in your original group of friends and families that hasn't found the happy ending to log out. Like a tent, suddenly losing its supporting structure, you collapsed in bed. Finally, when you got up again, feeling hungry, you opened the fridge, looked at all the orderly stacked prepared food. You looked through the labels. None of the food that you carefully made brought your hungry tummy any appetite. Checking at the time, it's getting dark. You probably had slept for more than 24 hours. Getting out of the house without grooming, wearing your glasses and a random cap, like your legs has a navigation system built in. You walked to a small soup store nestled in a busy and modern shopping street. A store that's so old, among LED large screens and brightly lit store signs. The store only has a sign that's spelled soup, that's indirectly lit by the streetlight under the broth steam coming out of a couple of the ancient looking large clay pots sitting in front of the restaurant in the cooking station. You couldn't help but walked towards the wonderful smell. Oh, nice to see a familiar face again. The restaurant owner happily greeted you and asked, "The same order?" You nodded your head, felt relieved. You knew you used to come to this hidden gem of the busy city with your forgotten friends. You used to sit in the same spot that you always sat in, under the bright yellow light and the slightly browned simple menu on the wall. A familiar, beautiful smell started to approach you. The owner slash chef slash waiter and cashier brought you a plate of steamed pork dumplings and a bowl of lamb soup with a rib bone sticking out of the steaming soup. Oh, the taste! You gushed over the warm soup that slipped into your throat, and the flavor exploded in your mouth. That's the exact recipe created by my grandparents when they started this restaurant, and when I inherited it from my parents, I only made very small adjustments to bring it up to date, the restaurant owner proudly announced. Seeing that proud face, you asked how the business had been. The store owner told you that the business had been doing really good, but he really missed his old customers. Surprised that the owner somehow can separate the old customers from automated NPCs. He proudly told you that he had this talent since he was a kid, that he can remember the names with faces and the combos that they always ordered, and the old familiar faces just disappear at a fast rate, and get the new customers to come in so he doesn't know their preferences. You smiled at the surprising way that the system glitches, feeling a small bit of humanity from the conversation. You started to feel sad. What if your presence at this restaurant was the store owner's movie script happy ending, seeing an old customer and concluding his story, then logging out of the simulation? Desperately trying to grasp onto the humanity of the wonderful taste, you ordered another additional soup and dumplings to satisfy your hungry stomach. The next day, you received a call from your nice manager asking if you're okay and for the reason why you skipped work. You promised that you'll return to work, and the oddly nice reaction from the manager made you miss the old picky mean bastard. Not sure what you should do, you picked up your exhausted mind and finished a full-day shift. You wondered what your destiny or purpose for this life is, or if you can even call this a life, since you're cursed with the truth that this whole world, this whole giant world, is just a giant simulation. You wondered why you were the one to be left alone in this composed world. Walking out of your draining office job amongst hundreds of people on the street, you don't even have the curiosity about who really exists and who next to you is just an NPC. Everything is just abysmal, especially thinking about going home, eating your prepared food, keeping your physique in check. All for what? Gaining a story perfect happy ending? To satisfy the simulation for whatever purpose? Thinking about how and if you should change the automation on the simulation to live your life in a self-fabricated world. With heavy footsteps, walking on the pavement, you walked towards the soup restaurant without yourself noticing. Maybe in the back of your mind, you want to see if the restaurant owner had found his happiness and had disappeared. Not sure about if you are wishing for the restaurant to be run by a system-generated character or your familiar companion who had served you delicious food and helped create part of your unforgettable, forgotten past. You felt both nihilistic and petrified. Standing diagonally across from the sign that spelled soup, looking at the huge clay pots with steaming delicious soup, waiting for the busy owner to walk by to check out if he had had enough time serving his purpose. With your fingers crossed, while you were praying for nothing, you see the restaurant owner walked by, serving big bowls of soup and dumplings to the customers with a bright, bright smile. You walked into the restaurant, saying hi and sat down. Observing the busy restaurant, people came along like you did. There are also people who came in as a couple. And there are also groups of friends, laughing, chatting, and enjoying the delicious food. Before you could order, the owner dropped off your favorite combo and said to you, "I remember you used to come with your friends too. How are they?" Trying to recollect your attention, suppressing the loneliness in your heart, you said, "They are really happy. They moved away and moved on. It's just me now." "I'm the same as you are." The restaurant owner smiled, wiping off the sweat from his face, and continued, "Everyone moved or passed. It's just me now." Then he walked away to continue his work. In the happy chattering, you finished the food. With your stomach being satisfied, you couldn't help but stay. Observing the busy pace of the restaurant owner, for the first time in a long time, you cared about something. You wanted to know what his happiness is and what his purpose in life is. Maybe you can help him, helping him with your secret path in the city hall to quickly help him be released from this exhausting simulation. Maybe that can be a purpose in this life, replacing the previous engineer. Deciding on the purpose to help write happy endings for the restaurant owner, you ask about the dream. And ironically, He wanted to work in the restaurant for as long as he could and to serve food to people who had worked hard to come in and enjoy a wonderful meal, like how his grandparents and his parents did at the end of the workday. He remembered the harmonious peace, although the family didn't speak much during dinner, as they were too exhausted by the workload. And although the memory of his youth had faded, he always remembered the grandparents would serve a little additional food to him. He would have enjoyed delicious homemade meal in the seat that you are in, and seeing everyone else in the family eating food while smiling when they looked at each other. He wanted everyone in his restaurant to enjoy food like he did, and he wants to see it happen for as long as humanly possible. So you won't ever want to leave this restaurant, even if you are leaving for not sure what you are supposed to describe the destination of being locked out with. You said, heaven? Oh, this is my heaven, my dream job. It's my calling to make people happy while making money. The restaurant owner replied. When you arrived home, the delivery for your bathroom mold solution had arrived. Passing by the NPC neighbor, you smiled and asked politely, "How was your day?" The neighbor old lady replied with a smile and told you it was a good day. Still feeling lost, but somehow no longer nihilistic, you didn't crash in bed when you got into your bedroom, feeling like the system had joked with you, that your decided purpose would be a lifelong mission. You had to decide if your purpose in life is to continue to find out who you are and what your purpose is, or accepting the current situation and working on the ironic purpose that you had decided. But first, you put on the cleaning gloves and walked into the bathroom with the new delivery to clean out the mold spot. That's all for this episode of The Living Journey. I truly am grateful for your time. Feel free to leave your reviews. Please like, follow, or subscribe. Do share this show so we can grow together. Until next time, lots of hope, signing out.